Thank you for tuning in to No Flag Radio. I'm your host, P. And this is another P Code done live. Today's P Code done live. Don't let white supremacist trolls or white supremacist media or any kind of troll for that matter pit African Americans against any other group of black people in the world like they try to do. And that's the code of the day. I say this because I was on Dr. Mumbi channel, and shout out to Dr. Mumbi. I love her content, coming from Kenya, coming straight out of Kenya. She kicking the facts and really trying to speak to this bridge that needs to happen with African Americans and every other black group on the motherfucking globe, but especially with our birth continent of Africa. I appreciate her for existing and doing that type of shit, right? But she has a lot of trolls on her account that try to pit African Americans against African blacks. Don't you notice that trolls only try to pit African Americans against Africans, the whole continent of Africa, and nobody else, no other group except black people in America against everybody in Africa? And this video is gonna explain to you why and what we can do and should do to not even get caught up in they shit. I'm telling you, they know that when we touch down, if we touch our people's hands and just hold hands for a little bit, we shutting shit down. They know our unity means the destruction of everybody that think they can oppress us. Period. Like globally. This is a global thing that they're fearing. Not just one group of black people somewhere making some change. They know this will upset the balance of the globe. So they want to hate. But they can't stop it though. Notice that they don't never do this with no other group of people except Americans and Africans. They don't try to put Koreans against all of Asia, Filipinos against all of Asia. You understand? That shows how blatantly desperate they are to stop this unification from happening, but they can't stop shit, you understand? But anyway, it's a reason for that. Just notice that shit. This is how the trolls work. And this is definitely how white supremacist terrorist beings are coded. They know from their medias to their political arms of white supremacy to their economic systems, they know that our greatness, our unification means everybody gonna have to bow down and get the fuck out the way or get the fuck rolled the fuck on fucking with us and being the fuck in our way. I just wanna say that. So, just notice that they want an entire continent to be against us here in America. They don't try to put Kenyans against Jamaicans, Haitians against Ugandans, or our brothers and sisters in the UK against Ethiopians. Y'all notice that shit? They come for us in America. And why is that? Well, I'm gonna tell you why. It's because we are the house slaves, the descendants of the house slave, the group of people who had a house slave population amongst our population. And every other group of black people on earth is looked at as simply a field slave in terms of some very critical areas. Some very critical areas of how they interact with white supremacist terrorism and how we do it. I want y'all to pay attention to these things because I'm gonna bring it up time and time again as we discuss this bridge that we're trying to build with our birth continent of Africa. This bridge we're going to make and going to maintain with Africa and other countries where black people are dealing with the idiocy of non-black groups, particularly whites and Asians right now. They the people who are dying the quickest out of every other group of people on the globe, and they're doing the most desperate shit out of it. But I still talk about everybody that's bullshitting on my channel. Y'all know this. But the reason they want to keep this divide up between us here in America and the whole continent of Africa, it's because we are the descendants of a house slave population mixed in with our shit, and that house slave spirit lives on today. It's a very anti-massa, very anti-complacency spirit. Every other location of black people on the map is looked at as a field slave. You hear me? And it's in terms of a few characteristics as to how they respond to the presence of white supremacist terrorism, any kind of supremacist terrorism that may make itself known. Now I want y'all to walk with me on this shit. The first characteristic is their daily access to white people is similar to that of a failed slave. Their code they have when dealing with white people in terms of looking at white people's history and then developing a code out of it. In terms of the physical uprisings they've had against specifically white people, and just this potentiality to slap the shit out of a white supremacist terrorist just for violating, right? And lastly, the worldwide indictment of the activities of white people that they have expressed. I'm gonna repeat that again. They come for us in America, these trolls and these people that want to dissipate the unifying energy between us and our birth continent relatives. They hate the strides that we are taking towards this and the notion of it. They come for us in America because of our access to white people, to white supremacist terrorists, and then the aggression and code that we've developed out of it that come along with a long-standing aggressor around you, smiling in your face after they got through aggressing you, asking you to forget about what they've done to you, though they haven't paid you anything back from stealing the equity of your hands for centuries, leaving you fucked up for centuries, right? Our code that we've developed from being around these motherfuckers, a defense mechanism, our code in terms of dealing with white supremacist terrorism, our history of uprising specifically against white supremacist terrorists, specifically them, and our international indictment of white supremacist society that we've popularized and kind of made popular culture now. In 2018, we seeing it. We started it here first in America, the black people in America. Don't nobody try to act like y'all started this shit first. Nobody nowhere. Just stop trying to play and fake it up. Now you know we started it first now. Quit it. Stop it now. Just look at our ventures that we deal in, this black community consciousness. We done made it spread globally, y'all. So we should be proud of that. But look, peep it out. I want y'all to remember these 4 points that I've said, because I'm going to keep coming back to them as my channel continues and grows. But specifically, our indictment of the activity of white supremacist society has had the farthest reaching effects globally. Just globally speaking, you can look at how hip-hop, which they still haven't been able to fully remove the community consciousness element from hip-hop. Even till today, we got our Chance the Rappers. It's just been watered down on the pop side of shit. Whenever it comes time to commercialize some shit or package some shit for Lil Jenny and Skylar, they gotta water it down because they whiteness can't take it. And we can look at social media and see how we've taken over and washed the social space with so much knowledge and truth and reality that white supremacist society don't even give their own children in the school books, that it don't even give their own general populace in the punk ass news programs and print media and all this shit. The shit we put out it weighs so heavy on the soul that the trolls come trying to diverge the energy of what we talking about and water down the truth, but it don't work, right? They just be engaging in fruitless ass endeavors of trolling, dumbass motherfuckers. We are the only black population on a constant meditation of indicting these motherfuckers for blatant bullshit. And we're not fooled by these motherfuckers. We actually defend against their motherfucking presence at all points of engagement. That's how we do. Like I said, we are the house slaves. And like our brother Tariq Nasheed says, the house slaves saw all manner of evil done in the home. All the dog fucking Massa and his wife would do. He would bring in his slaves to go fuck his daughter and he'll watch and jack off at the same time. You know what I mean? And then go kill the slave. He would do shit like that. This is the shit they was on and shit that they still do today. Don't even think that that's not what the fuck they on. So out of that evil, the homebred slaves, they wanted to run away more. Y'all get it? They wanted to poison Massa more. They wanted to kill Massa and his children more. right? And that genetic journey, genetic configuration of our ancestors that was stressed out by seeing this shit and dealing with these motherfuckers back then, that same kinship and bloodline run through us. You don't know? And we act up out of that and speak out of that discomfort and address the descendants of our oppressors out of that with a defiance. In the same way, the same anger and fire is being lit by us underneath they asshole, right? That's the lineage we from, and that's the difference I think that is not talked about between us and our African brothers. It's a bloodline thing. And it speaks to the American black spirit, right? They wanted to get away from that situation more. And we see this same dynamic, the same spirit, the energy never died. It's the exact same phenomenon, point for point, factor for factor today. So then you had the field slave who worked in the field, didn't see Massa all day. The only time they saw Massa when Massa was making his rounds to pick up some slaves to confiscate to bring inside the house. And the buffer between the field slave and Massa was that punk, chump ass, coon ass slave riding around with the gun on a horse. He was the good slave, one of the good ones that got a chance to hold a gun and ride a fucking horse. And he was just happy doing it, happy to be on a fucking horse with a gun, keeping the field Negroes in line. Sell out his whole family that was enslaved just so he could hold a gun and ride a fucking horse. He had a chance to get a little bit of meat with his chitlins. He ain't just get all the guts of the pig. He got a little bit of little hind quarter, little loin meat with his chitlins instead of just all chitlin guts with his allotments that he got from Massa, right? So look at a country like Zambia. Puppets in office, which is that motherfucker riding that horse, and then everybody that's under his watch is fucked up. And the people that's fucked up, they really ain't got access to the throat of Massa to put their hand around Massa's throat. And when I say Massa, I'm talking about the white supremacist terrorist financiers that control the puppets in these various countries in Africa. I'm talking about any non-black financier that controls a puppet president in the various countries of Africa. We talking about Zambia right now. The field slave, the people that's on the ground in Zambia, they ain't got access to the throat of that Chinese financier that's pulling the strings of they puppet ass president out there, right? And we've had that shit in America. We had it with Obama. Obama was the motherfucker on the horse holding the gun, keeping black people away from the throat of his masters. A troll, basically. Every time he got in front of a fucking camera, every time he got into a public space to have to speak, playing the role of dissipator of truth energy, he would dissipate that energy. Even when we talked about what was going on in his home city of Chicago, and people was beating him over the head with that shit, when it came to case after case of police doing crooked shit, the Laquan McDonald issue, where they basically trying to say this cop is not guilty in his murder, which I predicted a situation similar to this in my video I did on the 66, quote unquote, 66 people murdered in Chicago on that one weekend, where we know that was some white supremacist terrorist activity, some race soldiers out there playing games, some preppers, some militia motherfuckers. Yep, I said it, preppers, militias, you bitch motherfuckers, y'all. Being bitch and playing games. We found y'all out. But rewatch that if y'all want a refresher or want to just see what's up with that. But that's the science of that shit. What did Obama do when he was in office? He did puppet shit. He helped out gay people and white police who racially profiled black people for entering in their own homes. Y'all remember that case? This is what a puppet motherfucker would do. So we see what's happening with our field slave population. Not trying to say that derogatorily, proverbially speaking, the field slave population in various countries in Africa is happening with China. They trying to run their oppressors through there and trying to keep a train ran on Africa. But back to the house slave. We are the house slave who had the proximity to understand white supremacy, to understand whiteness and all its degeneracy on a level that's too close for comfort, while our other brothers and sisters in other countries, we're gonna give them more of the failed slave title, they predominantly only see black people, which is good. I'm sure it's like heaven. God damn, you wake up and only see black people. I'm sure that's like heaven. God damn. Like I said, I grew up in an all black neighborhood. It was black businesses where I grew up at. My black teachers lived on the same street as I did. But understand, our African brothers and sisters, they see this shit every day, while white people are the few and far in between. So white people are able to hide their hands in the oppression of black people a lot harder in these places. That is, until the shit turned into something major with them, like apartheid in South Africa or a Rhodesian style government in the old Zimbabwe, before Zimbabwe fought against the white supremacist terrorists out there and gained their independence. Or you might see some shit like what you see in a lot of African places now, where you got white dollars controlling black puppets. They're in power positions, delegating black puppets as the buffer between them and black society. So the intimacy of engagement with white people is not there. The intimacy of engagement with these Asians, these other non-blacks, is not there. And that's where they keep catching Africa slipping at. It's the out of sight, out of mind thing going on in Africa with these non-black financiers and neo-colonizing business bodies that put their hands in government through these loan situations they set up. That's some dirty shit. And then our African people, they get played by seeing a black face in the presidency 30, 40 years. And then they say, oh, well, the real purse strings are out of sight, out of mind. It's shameful to admit that we've been colonized by people that aren't even black and we're the majority. Well, let's see what mental diversion we can try to live by and try to create to make us feel better about the situation. Oh well, might as well get on this tribalism shit and turn to the black people we see every day and start hating on each other, saying how my tribe is more unique and more original than this other tribe, and how this tribe is not as real as this tribe, and just some Bloods and Crip type shit we got going on, it seems like. Just so we don't have to deal with the mind state of, hey, we're being oppressed by a common oppressor who's kicking our black ass. And they're using our niceness and softness and warmness, all that against us to run us. They running shit and we ain't doing shit about it. Damn. Compare that to a group of motherfuckers that's looking at these motherfuckers every day be pieces of shit. Like we are in America. You understand? Y'all having any sense of waking up and slapping the shit out of them motherfuckers in the various countries of Africa is what they fear. Believe it. That's why they troll Dr. Mumbi channel. That's why they troll our comment sections, channel for channel. That's why you got African brothers and sisters that come over here and be on social media with that tribalism mind state. Our group, our country is better than, they bring that shit to predominantly American forums or forums that we created here in America. They bring that tribalism mentality and they try to run it with us too, not just their neighboring African countries. You see what they coming from in a lot of cases and how they played and how they're wired in a lot of cases? Just saying. So just like on the plantation, the field slaves, they didn't even want to be free in most cases. They didn't even know that they was free in a lot of cases when they got free. So don't let white supremacists or the puppets or even a motherfucking troll to try to divide us. Because the people on the ground and the people in the house are pretty much on the same page globally. We don't want to be subservient to nobody. And we don't want to be subjugated. And that's what they don't want us to see. How the house slaves in America are on point with the field slaves in Africa. Just meditate on that. Think about that. Think about how deep that shit go. And that's the code of the day. Get it, y'all.